Are the Badgers a little bit better than we're giving them credit for up till now? We'll discuss it next on the Bucky Report.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective. Woo-hoo! Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome into the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers from a fan perspective. You can get in touch with the show at The Bucky Report on Twitter. Email us at thebuckyreport@gmail.com. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your content. We have a great special guest today from Locked On Badgers, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the one and only,
the great Ryan Harings.
Welcome, man. Ryan. How's it going, man?
Listen, that's the nicest intro I've ever had. Not that I've had many, but no, it's great. It's great to hear. I love what everything you guys have done with this so far. It's not surprising to see the instant success and growth with you too. So I'm stoked to be here.
Well, we definitely have you to thank for a lot of our early success. So thank you for allowing us to, be on your show so much. And it's great. Like, the fans have spoken. The tripod is back together. People certainly like when we do this together, and we really like it. It's our favorite show when the three of us are together. So whether it's here or whether it's on Locked On, we're going to keep doing shows together because this is a great crew to get. But we're happy to have you on the show, Ryan. Justin, it's bye week, man. I mean, this is so let's get into this, man.
Yeah. So first things first, let's just dive into what we've accomplished so far this year. So, I mean, obviously, we've had 3 kind of mediocre wins that we've had so far, and a game against a Washington State team that has proven to be a legit team at this point. They have taken down Oregon State, and who did they beat this last week? They took somebody down again. Utah? It wasn't Utah.
Well, Oregon, it wasn't Utah because Oregon State took Utah down.
I think it might have been a non-con one for them. I'm trying to remember who it was. But they're up to 13 now. They are up to 13, and they are starting to pick up some accolades here and looking like a legit team. And it's starting to look like a very good loss. Up to this point, I think we've kind of tempered expectations a little bit, which is necessary, I think, with all the new stuff that was kind of happening. And we just had so many new pieces. Like, it wouldn't have been as big a deal had we had a returning quarterback and the pieces there and just switched offense. But the fact that you're having a bunch of guys that are trying to build chemistry with a brand new system and everything else, where there's no cohesion there at all, I think we kind of were unreasonable with our expectations. And I think that between trying to build the culture and everything else, everyone was trying to feel out everyone up to this point. And I think we kind of struggled a little bit more than we might have thought we would coming into this. And to our credit, we have not had a lot of turnover at Wisconsin over the last 20 years. So it's not like we're used to having a lot of this type of turnover. Even with coaches, we haven't had it. We haven't had the great mass exodus. Like Minnesota lost 5 assistant coaches. We haven't had that since Bielema had it 1 year, I think. But really, there hasn't been a lot of changeover with our coaching staffs over the years or our schemes. So even when we replaced, it was basically like, hey, you're plugging into running a power off or a pro style offense and a power run game.
Yeah. And I and the coaches, as fans, we're going to obviously have those expectations, right? I agree. I mean, I just am to the point where when you look at what we've done, we're 3-1, we're 1-0 the conference. And most importantly, we've been improving every week. I think we can say that, the first half of the Purdue game was exactly what we've been wanting to see out of the first half for all the other games. Right. And I think that really says a lot about where the program's heading. Yeah. When we came into the season, I wanted 50 points a game. I expected to see this, high flying everything. And I feel like I was disappointed, and I have been disappointed a little bit, but it's more that I let it just get so big in my head when in all actuality, we're winning games. Yeah. We have some things we need to clean up, but we're cleaning them up. And the bye week comes at a perfect time. Now we've got the meat of our schedule in front of us. And I feel like we've improved. The goal of any team in any season, in any sport, is to be playing your best by the end of the season, right? We want to be playing our best football in November when we can finally just beat Minnesota down and then go to, hopefully go beyond that and certainly go to a bowl game. But so that's fine. And as long as we're improving, we're on track and we're doing everything. It may not be exactly what we wanted in the way we wanted to see it, but I'm overall happy with where things are. Ryan, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I would just say two things. So I agree with both of what you said. The first is I was listening to another podcast, Badger podcast. I think it was Badger Extra. I want to give necessarily credit where credit's due, but they were talking about that Washington State loss looking better and better and not look. And I always, Justin, you kind of hit on this too, that loss is looking better. I always kind of step back from that and say, I never thought that was a bad loss, even in the moment, and it's not because this is not like, because I thought even if I hadn't thought that we would lose that game, if you go on the road in week 2 against a real quarterback, that's never a bad loss, and I think the narrative of that is switching to people like saying, oh, it's not that bad. It was never that bad of a loss. You know what I mean? It really wasn't.
I don't think it's necessarily that I viewed it as a bad loss in terms of what we thought. I think our expectations of what Washington State was going to be this year, I had them as like an 8-4 type team, which I don't think is a bad season. Like I think they're a winning team, but they have potential to be a 10-2 type team, which I think is a leap. Like that's going up a tier in terms of the college football landscape. If you make that jump, now you're looking at like a top 15 type team. If that's where you go, like they're a legitimate dark horse contender for the Pac-12, which is something that is a fairly big deal. Like they handled Oregon State. So they have, and USC's defense is still terrible. So this is going to be a really interesting, they could take Utah. I think Oregon's the only team that you'd look at, or probably Washington too.
So they play Oregon. They play Oregon on October 21st. They go at Oregon and then at Washington at the end of the year. Yeah, look, I mean, I agree. I see, Ryan, your point. Like you were one that called it. Like you said, you thought Washington State was going to win that game. But Ryan, do you feel like you're happy with what you've seen so far, or are you disappointed? Where are you at when looking at your expectations coming in and where they are now?
I'm pretty content. I think content is a good word, right? Like I'm pretty content. And you mentioned something, you let it build up in your head, and I've been thinking about this idea for a long time. And I don't think I think that's a product of successful marketing. Like Wisconsin, what if we talked about Wisconsin flipped their marketing on its head, right? Luke Fickell, everybody came in. It's a new recruiting staff. They really built hype around the program, and the job was to build excitement because in the NIL era, you need that. So, Rajeev, I don't even know if you let that go to your head as much as Wisconsin's marketing did a great job of putting out a message that was pretty exciting.
I look at it kind of from the mindset of I never had these like crazy expectations like some of the people did. Like I would have loved it. Like looking at the schedule, I'm like, there's a possibility they could go 12-0 if everything went according to plan. I think that still is something that could have happened had there been the growing pains been minimal. The offense comes off and is clicking right off the bat. Like that's something that could have legitimately happened with the schedule that they had this year. Like they're not facing a bunch of teams that are, going to make it really difficult for them to. I mean, you basically look at Ohio State as the one game where the talent differential there is substantial. Other than that, every other game, if they came out hot, there would have been a good chance they could have won. And I still feel that way. Like Washington State wasn't an unwinnable game. If we don't have a bad, unsportsmanlike penalty and a fumble, we have a chance to tie that game or take the lead. So, I mean, with that in mind, I think a lot of it is people look at it from like the hype that was built up and attached expectations to it that the staff never really did. The staff was trying to say we're going to be more explosive, which we have. We're consistently scoring in the 30s, and that was not something that we could have expected last year. It's just different. The defense is more opportunistic than it was last year. It's going through some growing pains. I think we'd agree. There's players are struggling, I would say, more on the defensive side than the offensive side. We see guys seem to be far more tentative in what they're doing on the defensive side of the football. And I think that's probably where I have the most content was a good word, because I'm looking at it, I'm like, I can understand what's going on the defensive side, but I can also see that there's a room for improvement here based off of what we've seen from several of these players in terms of their success in the previous game.
And we're going to get into, before the show's over, we're going to get into where we think the Badgers are going to finish this season and kind of how the second half goes on. Let's go to our next topic here. Which game did we perform the best in? Ryan, you want to kick us off here?
I think to me, this one was a pretty easy one. Some of these questions are a little harder as we go on to the show. I thought Purdue, to me, going on the road in that environment, a game they needed, Big Ten. To me, it's Purdue. It's a win. It's the first half. It's everything we talked about. It's also everything we talked about Purdue, it was Hudson Card, the passing game. We need to be able to limit this attack. And quite frankly, we did that to Hudson Card. Now, the running game was a different thing, but we made him very inefficient. We picked him off twice. Road game, Big Ten win. And honestly, it never felt that scary to me. Even when Purdue kind of tightened the screws, it never felt that scary. So to me, it was Purdue pretty easily on this one.
I definitely had a little fear sitting in the stands at that Purdue game, just because I was also at the game when we were up 19-0 against Michigan at Michigan, and they came back to win. And it was just one of those feelings where every time we got a touchdown, I was thinking we were getting field goals, they were getting touchdowns. And it happened again. And I'm thinking, look, if this happens again and they're within 3 points, I mean, it is going to just be devastating, because then the crowd just kept being louder and louder, right? It was a little difficult. I agree. The Purdue game was the best because of the first half, because 21-3, we were dominating the game. Where it's difficult for me to be excited about that game is because, like every game we've played, there's always something that I'm just like, it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And the run defense is just that, which we're certainly going to get into throughout the show. But it just made it really difficult, because I still haven't seen that game where I go in and I'm like, all right, here we go. And I come out thinking, wow, we are amazing. And that's okay, because we're still winning, right? And maybe that feeling doesn't come until later. Who knows? Hopefully it's Minnesota, but hopefully it's Ohio State. I mean, there's so much left for us, right, that we still have. But I still have a little bit of trepidation, thinking, okay, like when are we going to see that big explosive thing that we wanted? But look, the Purdue game, that 21-3 was so nice. And boy, I'll tell you, I was sitting around all Purdue fans. I was at like the 45-yard line, and they were just as quiet as can be when we went up 21-3.
I find it so interesting that we look at it, and that game never got closer than 13 points. And yet we, under Paul Chryst, consistently held 7-point leads where we just felt like we were in control. And I think that's something we can look at and kind of be like, this is where the difference kind of lies with this. Like, we're going to have more of a boom or bust defense. We're definitely going to have going forward, because it's going to be more of a shock defense. Like, their goal is to be disruptive and to make plays, whether it be turnovers or sacks or whatever. We're probably going to get gashed a little bit more than we have in the past, which we had a very conservative defensive style with the previous scheme. That being said, like, I also feel like when we look at the offense at any given time, like I think part of the issue that we have is that we score very easily at times with the offense, and it's inconsistent though. So it's like, well, why can't we just repeat this? Like we made it look really good, getting up 21-3, and then all of a sudden it's like, now we start tripping over our feet, and it's like, man, can we just have a game where we just lock this down and like we like punish the other team to the point where they crack and break? We haven't had a game like that yet. I think that's the thing that we're missing, and why we're so anxious as fans. We want that game where we kind of break the other team's will, where it's just like, you can't stop us no matter what we try doing.
And we did that in the first half, though, right? Like we did exactly what we needed to do. We imposed our will, which is what I was definitely hoping they would do, and that's exactly what happened. And I love that. I love that we just dominated the strong part of Purdue's defense, which was their defensive line,
which showed up against Illinois this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
by the way, Illinois,
they're not as bad as everyone's talking about Purdue, and now their defense looks like it's taking a step forward. It's like, maybe Wisconsin's offense is actually pretty good.
Well, again, that might be the second best team in the Big Ten West. Purdue.
It could be.
Went to their house, and honestly, again, Rajeev, I could understand the perspective of being in the stands. I remember vividly that Michigan game as well, by the way.
Yeah.
But just watching it from where I was watching it, it really never felt like Purdue was going to win that game. Yeah. It felt like we took control, and we never let it get close enough to be super scary. And again, that's a road game in a night environment where they needed it. And I think that's probably the second best team in the West.
I would agree with that. I mean, Deacon Hill at Iowa is not scaring anybody.
Oh.
Like, there are things that defensive coordinators are going to do to mess with that kid. And I'm sorry, but that's what happens when you don't have a lot of live reps under your belt, where you're just seeing all these crazy different things that defenses do that you probably weren't seeing at either Wisconsin or, well, you might have saw a little bit of it against Wisconsin, because Leonard liked to do some of that stuff post snap, where he would change things up and show you some exotic looks. But it's one of those things where he's not scaring anyone. And Ethan is not scaring anyone. I'm sorry, Minnesota fans. You can say whatever you want about his potential. I've watched the kid throw enough now to say it's just not there. Like, he doesn't have the accuracy and touch. There's a reason why he's getting 14 or 18 or whatever reps it was in this last game. If the coaching staff believed in him going out there and winning the game, throwing it, they'd be out there throwing it. That's how it is in college football. If you have a stud quarterback, you'll ride it because it's so much easier for you if you can.
Iowa's defense is still going to give us fits. That defense is still elite, and I know that Penn State scored 31 on them, and Michigan State even scored 16. But still, like that Iowa game is not going to be an easy game, And so I wouldn't go far as to say Purdue's the second best team in the West, but I guess we'll see when it all shakes out.
The X factor in that game to me is Mordecai's legs, because I think Iowa can do everything right defensively, and if he can break the pocket and just kind of throw them off enough where they start having to look back at him and do some things where it throws them off or somebody reacts a second late, that's where you start piercing a defense like that.
And you may only need to score 17. I mean, realistically,
no kidding.
You really may not. I know this isn't an Iowa preview show, but you may not need to score more than 20 against Iowa, realistically. Their defense can play really well, and we've seen it. They can still lose pretty easily because Iowa offense.
They can't separate. Yeah. It's what we talked about with Wisconsin teams in the past. They let people hang around.
Right. Most definitely. I mean, it is what it is. Well, I guess we're going to find out soon enough, right? Like how this all goes. But all right, so we're a third of the way through the season. We're now going to do some grades. We'll get into it with our
weekly superlatives.
All right, Justin, we are going to start with our offensive grades.
Yeah, what position we want to go to first, boys?
You call it.
You want me to call it? Let's go offensive line. Okay. A much maligned position for most of this. I'm going to come out and I'm going to say that I'm going to give the offensive line a B-. I think they've been pretty good. The penalties have got to stop, and I think that's what's truly holding them back. And then Jack Nelson having a super rough game against Washington State was a big factor for me. But overall, I think pass protection for the most part, bar that game, has been pretty good. I think Mordecai's had quite a bit of time to wander around in the pocket. Run blocking could be a little bit better. There's been some times where they've been pushed around a little bit, and we just haven't been successful until the second half, and that's kind of thrown off the offense a little bit. We have been kind of unbalanced in the offense so far this year, where like one side is working. We haven't had a game where the run game and the pass game are both working at the same time early in a game. So going forward, I think there's room for improvement there. But I'm going to stay with a B- on that. I think I feel pretty good that if we can clean up some of the procedural penalties and things like that, and if Nelson can take a step in his pass blocking, this group can come together pretty well, especially if we get Renfro in for snaps.
I went C+, and I almost went C. Listen, C's average. Like, I don't think they're bad, but like when your left tackle has a game where he's a turnstile, like that drags it down. The procedural penalties. And then we talked about the snaps all season long, and we can talk about that's because Renfro's not there, but that's part of the grade. Like the backup center hasn't been good enough in getting the ball to the offense, which I honestly think that like 0.2 of a second is throwing a bunch of stuff off. Like it's like a 0.1 of a second where Mordecai's almost like, all right, come on. And because of that, because of the snapping, because of Nelson, and because of the penalties, I kind of throw all that together. I'm just like, C+. I think I can't go into the B range with them, but I think outside of them, to your point, I think there's been moments where the pockets have been really good. It's just some of these glaring things have been consistent, and they got to get fixed. And I think they might get fixed literally just with Renfro coming back to some degree.
Yeah, so I'm with Justin on this one. I went B-. I was kind of close to the C, and I think the reason I'm going a little bit higher than you is just the running has been pretty good. We're averaging 5.4 yards carry, 201 yards a game rushing, and so the run blocking has been good. And the pass pro really hasn't been bad, except for a few situations. Certainly the Washington State and Jack Nelson situation was bad. But what's really bad is the penalties and the snaps, which obviously you guys have talked about. We don't need to rehash that. If Renfro comes back, that's going to take care of itself. The speed of those snaps must get faster. It's absurd. And it's not just every fan seeing it. The coaches surely see it. It has to be talked about in the bye week. The first snap coming out of this bye week in the Rutgers game, I expect to be a laser to Mordecai. I don't care who it is. But yeah, I went B- because they've been maligned and the penalties are bad. But overall, I think when I look at last year's performance on the O-line and I compare it to this year's, I think we're better this year. Overall, I think the unit cohesively, it is better than it was last year. And I can see that. And I feel like that's why I'm a little bit higher on them, but I understand it's fair. I will kick the next one off. I'm going to go wide receiver for the next one. I'm going to go B here. I wanted to go a little higher, but I think that first of all, DK has been amazing. Pauling has been really good. Bell has had 2 just not good drops. It's not acceptable. CJ Williams had a great game against Purdue. Bryson Green's been a little missing. And I think the reason I'm giving the group a B in general is because seeing them live, I got to see some of their routes and everything. And then the routes were really good. And I think that they're doing a good job, but they definitely could be doing better. The cuts aren't as quick as I would have hoped for them to be. And some of the creativity on the back end of the plays, I think, needs to be a little better with the kind of how they're finding Mordecai in a difficult situation. But overall, and then of course the drops just bring it down a little bit. But look, the unit is way better than we've had in the past. There's so much talent there. And I'm happy with what we're seeing. And I think we're going to keep seeing improvement, right? CJ Williams kind of had his breakout game against Purdue. Let's hope Bryson Green has his breakout game against Rutgers, right? So let's hopefully can we push this forward a little bit. But overall, I'm going with the B.
Our chemistry's off. You can tell.
Yeah.
I'll
go B- on this. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think the talent's there, but I think it's kind of one of those things where it flows from the wide receivers are always kind of at the mercy of the quarterback play. And I think that there's a variety of issues associated with why the grade isn't higher right now. There's been drops. There's been some inconsistent play in general, I think. I won't say they've been bad. I feel like there's a lot of talent in that room, and there's a chance for it, but we haven't had a game where the passing game's really gone off yet. And that's kind of where I'm kind of sticking on this a little bit. There's a lot there. There's going to be a game where we have 300 plus yards at some point this season. It might even be 350. And it's just a matter of somebody getting loose and creating some plays. And CJ Williams was one of those this last week. He did have a really nice game. He's a broken tackle away from having like a 25-yard up the sideline one on one of those. And it's like one of these times you are going to juke that guy and just go. And it's going to happen because the talent is there, but you just can't go down on that first hit.
Yeah, I went C+. Again, I'm kind of lower on this. I just don't think – here's the thing. Like, again, C+ is a better than average. Like, C+ is a little better than average. I was way better than I did in high school for the most part. It's honestly. But I can't think of too many moments in games where receivers made great plays. Like, there's been so many opportunities to go up. CJ Williams had a couple of them. Bryson Green's had a couple of them. Skylar Bell's had a couple of them. And they just haven't won the 50-50 balls, or in Skylar's case, the 100-0 balls. Like, it feels like they've made the obvious plays that have been there. DK's been great. Averaging 20 yards per catch is awesome. But for the most part, Bryson Green has drastically underperformed. Like, he's 5th on the team in receptions. I think that's really far below what we wanted. CJ Williams has had one good game. I don't put all this on the receivers either. Like Justin said, it's a product of the quarterback. It's a product of a lot of things. But like, there just haven't been very many game-breaking plays from a unit that we thought might be the deepest receiver unit we've seen in a long time. So I'm going C+ with the idea that I'm just grading based on what I've seen, right? And I think Pauling's been really good and DK's been really good. The rest to me have been kind of meh. Now, I think there's a lot there, though. I think there is a lot there where the plays are just inches away. That Al Pacino speech, right? The inches we need are everywhere. They're there. But just based on what I've seen so far, I think they've been fine, but not above that. Yeah.
And I think that's something that can definitely happen yet this season. Like, I think that's where we feel like this is one of those things where it's just at some point it's going to click and it's just going to start. They're going to want maybe one guy at a time that starts kind of breaking into it a little bit where they just get comfortable and it just will open everything up.
Yeah, I expect the grade to slowly rise. Ryan, let's kick it to you for quarterback. What's your grade for Mordecai?
I'm going B-. I could see an argument for a higher one, though, because he's been really – everything we've talked about with Mordecai as a veteran, I think is very true. Like, he'll take a hit or even have a bad pick, and he'll come back and he'll just lead a drive. Like, he's unflappable. The rushing game against Purdue specifically was awesome. You kind of zoom out and you see 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions 4 games in. It's kind of weird. 2 of those were in the first game.
And it doesn't tell the full stostory with him either. It's so weird.
It does seem very weird, but those are also the numbers, right? Like, but I'm going to say B-. I think I really liked him. I would go to war with Tanner Mordecai. I think he is the best quarterback we've had for a while. I mean, maybe
to Wilson.
Yeah, it's certainly Wilson, but like I put him in that Tolzien category.
I think Tolzien is good.
Yeah. but he's a really good college quarterback. I feel very confident going forward. But for me to give it better than a B- grade, you got to have more touchdowns and picks. I just think it is what it is.
It's fair. The ratio is pretty bad. You've been a little bit lower than I kind of expected you to be a little bit on this, Ryan.
God,
but
he's
just like
such
a half a grade
he's
lower.
so pessimistic.
So
God,
pessimistic.
Ryan.
So I'm actually
why are you the negative Nancy over here?
So I'm actually at a B, a little bit higher, because look, I think Tanner Mordecai has been the reason that we've won a couple of these games that frankly we didn't really play well all around. And he has poise in the pocket. He knows what he's doing. He's very experienced. I want him to throw deep balls better. That's one thing that I'm not going to give him an A because he's not throwing those deep balls properly, as well as we'd like him to throw them. But his receivers haven't helped him. Let's face that. I mean, there's been 2 touchdowns that have just been flat drops. So maybe you look at that as now 4 or 5 touchdowns in that situation. So he hasn't had all the help in the world, but he's done really well. And frankly, his legs in that Purdue game were really fun to watch, and what he did, what he was able to do and escape the pocket. He keeps his eyes downfield. I really like what I see out of him. Not quite an A because he's not quite there yet, but I'm going to say solid B.
Yeah, I'm going to go B2. I really like his intangibles. I think he's been exactly what we were hoping for in that he's had great poise. I think he's a great leader, and it's not something we've always had. Like he's a guy who does not seem like he gets flapped, and I think his confidence definitely rubs off on everyone else. I do think he's been a little bit too tentative in the passing game. I think we're used to seeing his film and thinking that he's a little bit more of a gunslinger and a guy who attacks. He hasn't really attacked that much. It seems like either it's there or he's like, all right, I'm pulling it down. And I want to see more of that going forward. Like, I think there's plays to be had in this passing game. I think there's something you talked about it being at the Purdue game that there were guys that were open. He's just got to pull the trigger. And maybe this is where the snap thing kind of comes into my head is like, is his timing thrown off where he feels like he's rushing through his progression now because he's like a quarter second or half second behind where he wants to be when he gets the ball because he's been waiting for it and he's like rushing himself to catch up. And that's where my concern lies because I do think Longo has a lot of short passing game in his offense, and it kind of branches out after that, after you build off of it. And I think that we haven't established that even quite the way that he's wanted to this point. I do think that the deeper passing patterns will come as the season goes on, and we are going to have some games where they just hit like 3 or 4 big passes in a game, and it changes everything. But it's going to, once Mordecai starts locking in and starts taking those shots, which I think will happen once he fully gets comfortable with everybody, then the offense will take off. But he's not quite there yet. And I think what we can say is it's not a lack of talent with him from what we've seen so far. It's a matter of things just need to start clicking more. And I think that's the positive takeaway that we can take from what we've seen with the team so far.
I think you kind of hit it right there with clicking. That's just what needs to happen. And we're close and it's not too far. Justin, lead us off with running backs.
Yeah, this is a tough one, man, because you would have said A, like, or close to an A coming into this if Ches was still with us.
I mean, he's still alive, Justin.
Yeah, well, yes, he is with the team. Like he's there morally, to provide support to his teammates. But it stinks that he's not going to be a part of the offense because that's scary going forward. I'd say up to what we've seen now, I would say that I probably would give him a B+. I think they've been really good for long periods of most games, but they've also had some struggles at times. I think we still dance a little bit too much in the running game, and at times we have, like I said, where we're not clicking on both the passing game and the running game at the same time. We've had some times where the running game is like, man, we're just not clicking on this either. And it's like we have a couple of 2-yard runs or whatever and put ourselves in 3rd and long. If we can start getting to having 4 or 5-yard runs on first down, it changes everything with this offense. So I would probably give us I'll say a B+. I think we've been to this point. I've liked what I've seen from both guys, but it will be interesting going forward. I'm not sure I feel that positive going forward in what we have in that room.
I went A-. So let me finally be one of the optimistic ones here. Listen, I think it's still the focus of teams defensively. They come in and try to shut down Braelon and they try to shut down Chaz, right? And they say, Tanner, you guys beat us. This new look receiving core, you guys beat us. And because of that, I still think that it's a basketball term, but they have a lot of gravity. Like because of that, they open other things up for the offense. And Braelon, let's face it, I'm going to talk about this more when we get to a question down the road, but is averaging over 7 yards a carry. I know there's criticisms here and there, and some of it's warranted, but some of it is a victim of the expectations for Braelon. And we look at him through a different lens. He's averaging over 7 yards a carry, right? Mm-hmm. And for that reason, I'm going A-. I know the Washington State game was rough. I know the Malusi fumble was in there, but Washington State was flying safeties into the box. I mean, we talked about it. We saw it. Like, they were committed to stopping that. And that should have been a game where quite frankly, the passing game feasted a little bit more.
And it did in the third quarter. Like we definitely, the passing game, he hit 10 straight passes at one point. And that was because they got so aggressive in the run game that we started to attack him a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm going A- as well. I'm with you, Ryan. I think that, 7 yards of carry is exactly what I was going to say. I mean, how can you really not put that in the A category? To me, it's not really a full A just because the Washington State game was ugly. But, look, they've done exactly what we wanted them to do. I grade them where I wanted to put them, which is on the A line, because they've done their job, right? 7 yards of carry is doing your job. Running for 200 yards a game, that's doing your job. So if they keep, and they now, meaning Allen and Yakimelli and Aker and whoever's back there, because poor Ches and what happened to him, that's just awful. But yeah, still an A-. Let's quickly go tight ends. I'm going to do B+, just because I think that Tucker Ashcraft is a real talent, and I think I'm really excited about it. Haven't really seen too much. Hasn't really been overall. The tight ends haven't been a huge piece of what we're doing this year, but I'm happy with what I see out of him specifically. So I'm going to go B+. Justin?
I'm going to go B. I've been pleasantly surprised by what we've seen from that room, but there's been a couple of drops by Ashcraft, and it sounds like he was responsible for at least one of the picks where the coaching staff didn't love what he was doing on it. So I like what I've seen from Rucci. I will say this: I did not expect him to be as good in this offense as what he's shown so far. I think they've been a net positive for the offense, so I've liked what they've done.
I went A- on this one. Certainly that Ashcraft drop was a big one, but I think Rucci in particular, and we talked about it a couple times, I think on my show, maybe with one of you guys on there, he's incredibly good at blocking in space. So much of what they do is running behind him out in the flat, and his ability to pick up corners, safeties, linebackers in space is incredible. He's a good receiving threat. He's not hyper athletic. And then I think Tucker brings him just adds another element to the offense with his ability to run and move and block as well. So I went A-. I think if you had said before the year, what are your expectations for the tight ends? I think this has exceeded it for most people.
I would agree with that. I think that's fair.
All right, so we did QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end, O-line. Guys, put your stuff in the comments of the YouTube video or wherever we follow us. Let us know what you know, what you think these grades are. Moving on, offensive MVP, Mr. Julka. Where are we on that?
I'm leading off on that one, huh? I'm going to say Mordecai. Honestly, if it wasn't for him in a couple of these games, I'm not sure. Like, if we had, looking back at what our quarterback play has been in the past, if we had a traditional Wisconsin quarterback, we might be 1-3 or 2-2 right now, based off of how we've seen quarterbacks wilt. So some of how, like, his poise and ability to kind of keep it together on the offense and just make plays where, like, with his feet or whatever in these games has been huge. Like, he makes something out of nothing, which is something we have not had at quarterback in forever. So having that, I think that if you look at it, what we've seen in the past, we've definitely seen a positive influence from what he's brought to our team. And I think that that's the way I have to look at it. Like, we expect Braelon to be good. We expect Ches or the running game to be solid. What we haven't traditionally had as a quarterback that moves the needle and makes teams have to respect it. And that's why I have to go Mordecai.
I went Braelon. And I agree with a lot of what Justin said. I love the poise that Mordecai brings, but I think in this new offense, we kind of expected him to be good too with Longo, right? Like, I think some of the expectations have changed. At the end of the day, I still think, and I mentioned this earlier, so I won't rehash it too much, but I still think defense is really focused on shutting down Braelon, which makes everything else easier. And he's still averaging, again, people have been hypercritical at moments. He's averaging 7.13 per carry. That's fifth among Power 5 that's 13th among Power 5 backs in the country. He has 6 touchdowns. There's only 2 running backs in the country who have played 4 games that have more touchdowns than he does. Like, those numbers are just super rock solid for an offense that hasn't always clicked. It feels like you still have a kind of a constant there. So I went Braelon. Justin, I certainly agree with the poise of Mordecai. He would have been my number 2 on this. But yeah, I went Braelon on this one, just with the numbers and the production.
I'm going to be a little different on this one, take a little bit different route. And I know he's only caught a ball 11 times, but let me tell you something about Chimere DK. 11 catches, 228 yards, over 20 yards a catch. And frankly, he has been the rock of that offensive scheme as far as, throwing the ball. And he has been a safety outlet for Mordecai. If DK was not on this team, I think we would have lost another game. I feel like he brings so much greatness to that position. And frankly, I knew that Mordecai and Braelon were going to be in this discussion. So I wanted to step out and go something a little different. So kind of outside of those guys, but I really think he's been a huge part of this offense. And I think he's only going to continue to get better. I'm proud of him and everything that he's done. And watching him run routes specifically at Purdue. Wow. I mean, that guy, he was open so much, and he was open on that deep route 3 different times. And I'm so glad they finally threw it to him, but he gets separation. He's that guy who's running the right spot. And not to mention his contributions to special teams are really important. So I think he's a big part of our team. And I know that's not a sort of like a popular answer for offensive MVP, but I think he's been fantastic this year. And I'm so happy with everything I'm seeing from him.
Yeah. DK has been great, right? Again, the yards per catches, if you go back to 2009, you're not going to find a Badger receiver getting regular reps that has a higher yards per catch than he has through 4 games. He's been incredible. I still feel like if you're talking MVP, if you were to lose Braelon or Mordecai, those would hurt more than losing DK.
I hear that. And that makes sense. DK. That makes sense. And part of it is that I really just wanted to highlight some of DK's outstanding play. And this was kind of a category that I felt like I could do that in. But yeah, I mean, I hear you. Mordecai is certainly the guy that we need him throwing the ball. We need him under center. But I've just been really impressed. And I think he's outperformed my expectations, certainly from DK, because I expected a little more from Bryson Green. But that's why I'm just so happy. And Justin, I'm just dying to know what you think about my selection for offensive MVP, by the way.
I was going to say, I feel like you're poking me a little bit here.
No, I'm really not.
I have admitted that he has definitely been better than what he has been in the past. He definitely has taken a step this year. He is by far our most, as Ryan has said numerous times on his podcast, most reliable guy. He's consistently getting open and making plays. And this is what I needed to see from him. He needs to do it on a regular game. Like, if you want to prove that you're a number 1 receiver, you need to be able to go out there and get 60, 70 yards every game. And that's where he needs to be if he wants to be that guy. Now, he's getting the yards per catch. I'd like to see him get more catches. And I'm interested with you saying how open he has been. Mm-hmm. Hopefully he becomes more of a target based off of that, which should, in fact, open things. If he becomes a reliable enough threat that we can start forcing teams to account for him, things will open up for everyone else, which will give opportunities to the other receivers.
Right. All right, let's go to defensive grades. Ryan, you're up next to start. Pick any of the positions you want to start with.
Ooh, let's go cornerback. Let's start at cornerback. I went B- on cornerback. I originally was a little bit lower, but then I really thought about it. Listen, Holman has been great, quite frankly. He's tied for the lead in the Big Ten in interceptions. He's been really solid. And I think we've talked about it before. There's probably a reason teams are starting to pick on Alexander Smith a little bit more, who that's obviously hasn't been the player we thought. But I also think Matry's been really, really good in the slot. Really good tackler, has been pretty good in coverage. I went B- at corner. And I think that's another one that could get a little bit better. I just can't believe that the Alexander Smith we saw last year is the same guy we saw the first 3-4 games this year. So I think that grade could even get a little higher. But I'm going cornerbacks. I'm going B- mostly with Rico Holman. And Matry, I think, is a really solid slot corner for us as well.
Yeah, he's been really good. He did miss a big tackle in the Purdue game, which really upset me, Matry. But yeah, I went same B- actually. And I feel like this and the linebacker position, which we're going to get to, are positions where I feel like my grade had such a big difference from where I expected it to be, because we were really high on the cornerbacks coming into the year, especially with Alexander Smith. But you called it. Ricardo Hallman been really good, a couple picks, a lot of pass breakups. He's playing well. Smith did improve in the Purdue game. He did kind of get a little bit better. And I think if he kind of rounds back into form the way we expect him to be and the way we saw last year, I would expect this to still be a strength of our defense. But I also went with the B-.
Yeah, for me, I'm at a C+, and I'll explain this here. From an efficiency standpoint, they're actually pretty good. We've looked at them, and we played a ton of offenses that are pass heavy leading up to this point, and there really hasn't been anybody that, from an efficiency standpoint, has just torched us. However, the things that have frustrated me with them is that the times that they tend to blow something tend to be on 3rd and 7 or 8, where we let a pass sneak through. That's when Smith seems to get beat, is on a 3rd down and, medium. And it's like, come on, man, you should have the advantage here. tackling has not been good with the group. And that's a sore spot that if they tighten that up, they have a chance to be well above average in terms of the secondary. I think that that's something that is a reasonable expectation going forward. But I have liked Hallman has been good. Mm-hmm. Smith has been kind of middling for me, and Maitre has been kind of either really good or kind of mediocre. But we've had guys that have not even been mediocre in that position before. So I've really liked what he's brought. I think there's some room for improvement from this group, and they've already been pretty good. They can hold up with most of the teams, and like everybody in the Big Ten except for probably the top 2 or 3 teams.
All right, so I'm going to lead off the next one, and this is what I really am dying to talk about a little bit, is linebacker. I'm going to go C+ on linebacker. I probably could have gone, frankly, a little bit lower, but look, I need to, I said many times that Mumajong Mehta was going to be the guy that he was. I said on Locked On Badgers that he was a dark horse All-American. I mean, I said all the things, so I was wrong. He's not had a very good year. I don't know what's going on. The linebacking play in general, just it's been disappointing, especially on the inside. And we kind of lumped our linebackers together. But look, even Turner and Chaney, while they've had decent performances, Chaney especially, I still think they're missing way too many tackles. They're not. The run defense is really lacking. And even on the outside, I mean, Getz has been quiet. Peterson's been, here and there. I think Petroyski's got a lot of opportunity and talent, and I like what I see out of him, but I need to see more out of everybody in the linebacking area, whether it's, rushing or whether it's pass defense. I just, that the linebacking piece of Wisconsin's defense has been so dominant for so long. It's just difficult to see us kind of do that. And I know it goes in tandem with the D line and losing Benton was so big for us, but I'm going to go C+. I could have gone a little lower, but I think I like some of the individual play from Chaney and from Peterson a little bit here and there, and gets a little bit Petroyski. But yeah, I need to see more. I'm not happy with this. This is actually kind of the lowest grade that I have across any position.
Yeah, I'm going to dive in here. I'll go next, and my grade is lower. It is a C-. Yeah. I think this of the positions on defense, this is the one that I've been the least impressed with from what we've seen so far this season. They seem super tentative. I don't see a lot of pass rush savvy from the guys who are on the outside, and not a lot of pop, to be quite honest. I think we lack kind of the athletes that we've had at that spot over the last few years, and it's mostly bigger plotting guys, and that's not a necessarily a dig at them. I just think that we just don't have the bodies in there. Little known fact, we have a couple of guys coming in who are kind of freaks next year that I think are going to add a lot to that room. But right now, that is the group that we need to see something from. If this defense is going to make a turn, it's going to be the middle linebackers becoming less tentative and attacking and being more aggressive like we've seen them in the past. And it's going to be somebody on the edge at least providing some semblance of consistent pass rush ability, and it can't be covered sacks. It's like you got to actually beat the tackle and get in there and force the quarterback to either move up in the pocket where we potentially get sacks from somebody else, or at least disrupt him enough where he's going, off of his spot so he's uncomfortable.
C- for me too. And they've just not been very good. I mean, I hate to beat a dead horse here, but a couple other things I'd quickly add. I agree a lot with what Justin said. So times 2 on a lot of that. The leading sack guy on the team is a strong side defensive end that, quite frankly, isn't a great passer. Like James Thompson's really good. We're going to talk about defensive line, but it's not like you have Reggie White on the defensive line. That's the leading sack guy. That speaks to the edge rushers on the team. And the inside linebackers have been really iffy in run fits. We put clips up of Jordan Turner. He has a hard time. It just looks like he doesn't feel the scheme yet. Right. Muma has been.
The instincts aren't there.
I don't know what's going on with Muma. He averaged 7 tackles per game last year. He's averaging 4 per game this year. Like he's fallen off a cliff in some ways. And then you look at that touted group we had that came in. It was like the Caden Johnson was a 4-star. They don't get on the field. Daryl Peterson hasn't taken that jump. I just don't know if there's a playmaker there right now, unfortunately. And there's been a lot of missed tackles in space. I do think Chaney is a bit of a bright spot. I like what he's done. He'll overrun plays, though, because he's just kind of too aggressive. He's kind of like a missile that doesn't have a guidance system at times. But
the chip malfunctioned.
I like him, though. I think he's going to get better and better and better. But I'm going C-. I don't feel like they've given us a lot in the pass rushing game, and I think the inside linebackers have missed too many tackles.
Yeah. Fans, interested to hear what you guys' take on this. Is this your lowest grade as well? It seems like it's probably ours. So where do you go with that? Justin, where are we going next?
We're going D-line. And this is a position that none of us felt super great about coming into the season. And I'm anxious to kind of see what your guys' thoughts are on this group. I think they performed roughly about where we thought they would, minus Thompson, who seems to be a little bit above where our expectations were. I mean, if he ends up with 5 sacks, I'm going to be super impressed with him. But looking at this group, I think we felt like there was nobody that was really going to offer much in terms of a pass rush. And even Thompson, it's really inconsistent. He's not a guy that you look at on film and are like, wow, this guy's super disruptive. It's more like coverage sacks, or he'll occasionally burst through on one, but it's not like he's a consistent guy who's blowing up the tackle or, getting through the guard and causing problems. So it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, if we could get more out of this group, it would be a huge boon to things, because we really need to find some disruption overall. And it's not like we've been terrible from a sack standpoint or a disruption. I think we're like somewhere at the 3rd or 4th in the Big Ten, which kind of speaks to how bad the conference has been in terms of defensive aggressiveness and ability to cause havoc. But we've got to be better, because I think we're going to really struggle now we're getting into Big Ten play, especially with the teams that we're playing against aren't real pass heavy. So when it happens, we have to be able to get to the quarterback. So, going forward, it's one of those things where I'm hoping that the defense tightens up a little bit on the defensive line in terms of the run fits, and we need to find somebody that can at least cause some disruption. It doesn't have to always get home, but at least make it so that a quarterback's uncomfortable.
What was your grade, Justin? I don't think we got your grade.
I'm going to say that this is a C.
Okay. Ryan, where are you at with this?
I went C+. I'm a little higher. Like, I think the James Thompson story is a big deal, right? He's on pace for 12 sacks. Now, he's not going to get 12.
Yeah.
Like, super clear. No, let's be super clear. He's not going to get 12. But I think, Justin, you were on my show and we did over-unders for him. And I think I set the over-under for Thompson at 3, right? He's already there. I believe. Maybe it's 3.5. I don't remember exactly.
I think it was 3.5.
Might have been 3.5. But, like, he could very easily get to 6 or 7, considering he's already got 3. 6 or 7 is the best mark since Alec James in 2017 for him. So, listen, he had a really good sack. I think it was in the Washington State game where he did burst through. He beat a guy one-on-one quickly. That was, I think, the near safety, if I'm remembering correctly. But to me, he's been a big deal. Now, the rest of the defensive line is why it's not a higher grade than that. Like, they're getting washed out. Rodis Johnson, he's just not.
He just hasn't been good.
Just a guy. Gio Paez he's just kind of a guy. Isaiah Mullins getting back should help the rush defense, but he's not a penetrator either. So it's a C+ because the rest of the guys haven't really come along with Thompson. But Thompson has been really, really good.
Yeah. If you could get somebody solid next to him, it would make a big difference.
So I'm slightly better. It's B-. I'm a little more optimistic than these pessimists on this show. My goodness. But no, it's only because of JT Jr. That's the reason that it's a B-. It's exactly what you guys said. There's no need to go back into it. He's been great. He's been exactly what we needed at that position, and I hope that he continues to get it going. Ryan, lead us off with the last one, safeties.
I went B- with safeties, which I know some people might disagree with because half the safety group has been objectively a disaster for 2.5 games this year. However, Hunter Wohler has been certifiably maybe the best player on the entire team. Obviously the defense, right? But maybe the best player on the entire team. And he's been one of the best defensive players in the country. He's averaging 10.25 tackles per game, which it's one of the for any position, one of the best marks in the country. And then I bump it up a bit because I've been impressed with Preston Zachman. If Preston Zachman had never come in and solidified things, and then we were still rolling out some combination of Blaylock and Latu, and they were still whiffing like modern baseball hitters do with every pitch in the strike zone. If it was still that, it would be like a C something. But I like what Zachman's done, and Wohler's been a star. So for me, I'm going B- because I don't think Zachman's given that role up.
That's well said. I agree with you. I'm at B. I'm a little higher than you. I went B because of that, because of Wohler and Zachman's exclusively. If you take Latu out of this discussion entirely, it's more like an A- for me, because Latu's tackling has been so poor and Blaylock hasn't really been that much better, although he's been a little bit better. So yeah, I'm going B because Wohler, in our next category, I think we're all going to probably have him, but he's fantastic. He's amazing. And Zachman, totally agree with you on Zachman. So I'm going with B.
Yeah, I'm a B too. It's going to be an A for Wohler and then a C for everybody else. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of playmaking from the safeties position other than Wohler. So it's hard for me to say these guys have been, earth shattering. Latu was terrible. If we were just grading him, it would be a rough day for that grading scale. But yeah, the other guys haven't done too bad. I will say that, the defense overall, I think we've been too hard on them. They need to clean up some things yet, but I think that the unit could have been a lot worse than what we've seen given the scheme change.
I don't know if we've been too hard on them. Their run defense has just been non-existent, and I think when you look at and maybe it is just looking back with history and like looking at everything this program has always done. Run defense has always been one of our cornerstones, and it's just doesn't look normal this year. So I feel like the criticism is fair of this defense.
Well, especially with the missed tackles. That's where like Rajeev, you and I talked about this once offline. I don't even remember when, but I don't think missed tackles is something that magically gets better in the middle of the season.
Yeah,
I think that's
sadly you're right.
Makes this team the entire. No, it could get a little better, right? Obviously, but we're not suddenly going to become a really good tackling team. That's going to be here all year, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, defensive MVP. I'm going with Hunter Wohler. I would honestly be shocked I'm curious if anyone else didn't go with Hunter Wohler, but Hunter Wohler's the guy. He's freaking fantastic. I mean, he's in everything. He's involved in every play. His speed, his motor, his intangibles, his leadership, you name it, he's got it. And he is the reason that we've been where we are. So, yeah, I'm going MVP and Hunter Wohler. 41 tackles, 1 sack, 2 interceptions. He's the guy.
The only thing I would say, because obviously I knew we would all go Wohler on this one, so I thought a little deeper, because if this especially happens in basketball, people talk, well, what does an MVP mean? Is it best player? Is it most important? And
he's been both.
No, he 100% is. But like, if there was one other player on the defense you couldn't lose, is where I put it in my brain, and that's Ricardo Hallman to me. Like, if you were to lose Hallman, you have your cornerback situation goes from I think we feel okay to like sound the sirens like this is a disaster. So. To me, he's the most important non-Wohler player on the defense right now.
Yeah, I would say that's probably accurate. I don't know. Forkerner could probably fill in somewhat admirably there, but I think there's a chance that he actually ends up replacing Alexander Smith as the season goes on. So it'll be interesting with Smith if he can tighten it up, because he's getting pushed for sure at that position. He better lock it in, otherwise it's going to be maybe seeing a little bit of bench time, and you don't want to be doing that your senior year.
Yeah. So you're going with Wohler too, Justin?
Yeah. That's a sweep.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Justin, lead us off here.
Special teams grade? Of course. It is, honestly, at this point, I'm going to give it an A-, and the only thing that is a negative that we've seen from the special teams has been the kicks out of bounds. Clean that up, and it's an A+, because cannon leg is the best thing we've had at the kicking position since Rafael, and I actually think that he's a little cleaner than what we even saw with Rafael.
Oh,
not the dancer, but few are.
Yeah, I'm going straight A. I'm not even going A-. I get the kick off out of bounds things, and that does need to be fixed. Like no. It seems so weird and fluky to me. Like, if you tell me we have an incredible kicker, an incredibly serviceable punter, and Chim has been lights out as returner, I'll take a couple kicks out of bounds and still call it an A, because that's better than 98% of college programs.
Yeah, totally. I'm going an A as well, and that's really because and there's things we don't talk about with special teams, which I think are even more important. Like, yes, the field goals have been great, but there's the field goal, the blocking for the field goals have been great. The blocking for the punter has been great. The punter's been pretty good, and no mistakes on punt defense. Right? We're not doing something stupid like touching the punt and turning over possession, or getting our punts blocked, and all these things that what you want from special teams, in my opinion, is something that you don't really ever talk about. You don't really think about, because it's automatic. And the punting game has been automatic. The kicking game has been automatic. And yeah, this going into the season, this was my top concern. Now it is my most confident part of the team. That's great. So kudos to Fickell and Mitchell, who were coaching those guys.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say about the kicks out of bounds, the only thing that it kind of gnaws at me is because if this happens in a game where it's a tight game and it causes us to give up field position in a game where we need to stop the other team under 2 minutes, it's going to drive me insane. And that's because it's happened multiple times already, and it's like, this is not something that should be happening.
It is weird how much it's happened.
Yes.
Like,
you can go a whole season without doing it.
Yeah. It's like,
it's got to be fluky though, right? Like, you may not see that in a Badger game for the next 2 seasons. I don't know. Maybe it's not, but.
Right. Just Ryan, your turn to lead us off here. Who's your MVP? I'm thinking this is going to be a clean sweep.
It's Vakos,
Yeah.
right? It's Nathaniel. Yeah, I don't even think there's even really – listen, Chim has been super solid. I love that Bertram's isn't a disaster, and he's been good for the most part. But it's easily Vakos for me. Here's the other thing really quick with Vakos, and I don't know, every kick he takes feels pure. Like, it feels like a pure drive. There's no kick where he's taking him like, okay, it's good. Yeah. Like, every kick has been pure.
Yeah, totally.
I 100% agree. He's an A, and, he's my MVP too. Looking at this, I came into the season with high expectations for him, and he's exceeded those without even trying.
Yeah, there's really not much else to say. He's been fantastic. I'll lead this one off. We're going coaching grades next, so we'll just kind of do them all together, I guess. I'm going to go. So my coaches in general are an A-. That's kind of where I'm at with coaching. And the only one that's a bit lower on this board is Tressel. Tressel's is more of a B to B- for me, just because I'm going to say B- officially, because I just haven't really liked what I've seen out of the run defense. And he's also coaching inside linebackers, I believe. So there's that piece of it. And they haven't really performed that well. So, but with Fickell and Longo, I'm giving them both A-. And I think that they have really done well because, again, while it may not be exactly what we expected, it probably is exactly what they expected. They knew what they had. I think they knew what they were getting themselves into and where we were going to be. And we've seen improvement, right? We've seen improvement. Like, look at how many times did we talk about before the Purdue game? Like, hey, we really got to get faster starts on offense. Like, the first half is slow. And then look what happened in West Lafayette. So yeah, I'm happy with what I'm seeing out of him. I like his in-game decision-making. I like overall, I think the play calling has been pretty good. I don't have a lot of complaints with that. Sure, a little nitpicky stuff here and there with Longo, but for the most part, yeah, we're more effective than we have been in the past. Our culture is different. I'm very happy with what I'm seeing from Fickell, even though we're not super, super overwhelmed with everything we've seen. We're still doing exactly what I think they probably thought we were going to do. And, if we're being totally honest, probably what we thought we were going to do as well. So yeah, I'm going A- overall here.
I think sometimes we can get victims of being in the anthill, like the phrase where like if you're in the anthill, that's all you see. But there's a whole world out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we live in a college football world where PJ Fleck just lost to a Northwestern team that objectively is like a complete disaster, right?
Northwestern did score more against Penn State than Iowa did.
I mean, my point though is like there are coaches out there who are horrific. And Fickell and his staff came in, took over a new program, and in year one is 3-1 with a road win against Purdue and a close loss on the road against a really good Washington State team. That by itself is a good grade. If you think of nothing else, those you line those facts on a board and it's fine. I think there's little nits to pick. Like I think we didn't have to try to make Braelon Allen into Jerry Rice. Like I think there's little things here and there that are kind of weird. For the most part, I'm going B+. The penalties are the only reason penalties to me is like a coaching discipline thing that needs to get cleaned up. But B+, I'm totally good with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say it's a B+ for me too. The Tressel, I can totally understand your thought process on that. I kind of look at it with some of it, with any of this coaching stuff, taking a look at, do we really know what they're trying to accomplish with certain things? And it's hard for me to look at it and say, is what we're seeing them doing it wrong, or is it that the guys just aren't quite where they need to be quite yet in terms of understanding and everything else? A lot of it we'll sort out with this as the season goes on, and especially after this bye week, how much more confident guys seem in things, because they're going to be able to do a lot of self-scouting and kind of look at things and really dig into guys in terms of evaluating them and saying, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what we need to clean up. This is what you need to focus on going forward. I think that there is a lot of potential yet for this season. I don't think the defense is ever going to be great this year. I think it can get to the point where it's good. There's a lot of things that need to tighten up. Pass rush is going to be a problem for us all season, I feel like. But the other things can be cleaned up. I think they can become an above-average run defense if they can get everyone locked in and what they're supposed to be doing. I think that the pass defense can be a good pass defense too. But we've got to get things cleaned up where we're getting gashed on some of this stuff. Offensively, I think you look at it, and I think Longo has laid the groundwork. And at this point now, it's guys need to go out and make plays. And I think as the more comfortable they get, the easier it's going to be for them. There's a lot. People need to understand there's a lot of flexibility in this offense, which is going to allow guys to go out there and kind of make things out of the offense that aren't really drawn up. And that's something that these guys are going to feel out and get better with as the season goes on. That isn't something that we've seen in a traditional Wisconsin offense, which is why I think we're struggling with it a little bit. They're so used to everything being black and white with the way the offense is supposed to do things. And this is a spectrum offense. Like it's very gray. There's a lot of different shades to the way things can be done to be effective in it. And that's why we like it, because it gives you a lot of opportunities that you wouldn't have in the previous offense. And we're struggling with the ability for these guys to kind of gel in that.
Yeah. All right. Which coach is doing the best thus far? This is our last superlative. Justin.
I'm going to throw in on this. This is everything to me. Like this is scout. This is who's recruiting the best, who's doing the best job across the board. It's hard not to go Hitchler with this, given what he's actually done from a recruiting standpoint. He's been like the greatest recruiting guy we've ever had based off of this cycle. If I was going to say this, I think I would probably go with, I'm going to go Longo on this, because I do think he has a chance to alter this team in a way that we have not had since Barry came on board, and set a new tradition in terms of what offense is at Wisconsin. And he has absolutely annihilated QB recruiting to a level that would never be expected. He is on par with the top teams in the Big Ten. Like Ohio State, it's Ohio State and everybody else pretty much at that position. But he is a guy that we legitimately feel it's weird if he's not pulling in a 4-star.
Yeah, I mean, Longo makes a ton of sense from a recruiting standpoint. I also want to say Nate Letton, right? Just if you look at a position that was decimated by injury and a position that everyone said, holy crap, and then the starter that was going to be the awesome kind of underdog story of Nowakowski, then he gets hurt and they're like, we have 2 bodies. That's it. And they both played really well, including a true freshman in a scheme that, they picked up quickly. Rucci I thought, looked the best of his career. Ashcraft doesn't look like a freshman. I kind of want to say Letton. I guess I didn't factor recruiting into it as much, which would change the equation, but I'm going to stay with Letton and what he's gotten out of the 2 tight ends there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go. It's kind of tough toss up for me. Longo was who I'm going with because of everything that he's doing with the offense, and he's changing everything. But I'm going to give Matt Mitchell an honorable mention with special teams specifically. And Fickell's doing that as well. But he's also coaching outside linebackers, which hasn't been a super bright spot for us. But there have been a few plays better than the inside guys, at least. So I like Matt Mitchell and Longo as well.
He's responsible for Forkeren being here too. So
yep. Yeah. No doubt. All right, Justin, we got a few more things left on what we're going to talk about today. Where are we going next?
All right. So next we are going to dive into. So at this point in the season, do you guys feel like we've gotten what we expected from this transition to this point in the season? Is this what you expected when the season started, where we'd be at? And I think, Ryan, this is probably an easier one for you because you expected the Washington State loss. Mm-hmm. But is this how you thought we'd get there?
I thought the passing game would click quicker. Yeah. I really did, because I'm a big fan of Mordecai. I was a big fan of the receivers. So record-wise, obviously, this is where I thought we'd be, but this isn't exactly how I thought we'd get there. I did think the defense would struggle more. I thought the passing game would be better.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, we've talked about how I think overall the expectations were just really high. But yeah, I think that he's doing it the right way still. I mean, he's improving every week, and that's what I got to keep saying, because that's what you want to do. And if we haven't had any big drop-offs. Like, yeah, we got a little better. Yes, we lost to Wazoo, but they're a pretty good team, and as we all can see. So in general, yeah, I mean, I think we're where we need to be. We're on par with where we expected as far as record. Most certainly, we are for the most part. We're 10-2 is very much still on the table. I mean, 11-1 is technically still on the table. So it's not like we've really missed too much from them.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that in this regard. There's going to be people that don't love with how optimistic we've kind of been with some of this. I think we're just being realists with it. Like this, if you came into the season not expecting there to be some level of issues within the offense and defense, I think that you are being completely unreasonable. Like it's just going to happen when you have this much change year over year. So the way I kind of look at this is I look at the point totals that we put up and how dominant we've been in these games, and it's pretty much in line with what I expected overall. How we got to those totals is a little bit different than what I expected. I did expect, like Ryan, us to be a better passing team, and I still think there's something to find in that yet. I think that's actually something to take, some optimism from, is the fact I think there is a lot more to find in the passing game going forward, which I think will help. They're going to have to do it because I think it will open things up for Braelon and make it easier on him, where he's not going to take as much punishment potentially, which I think is something really important going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. All right, Justin, what areas are we better than expected and what areas do we need to improve in?
I would say the corner play has been, outside of Smith, in terms of what they've done from a actual efficiency standpoint defensively, has been pretty darn good. I wouldn't have expected us to be holding most of these quarterbacks to, like, probably if we did a deep dive on the stats, I bet you we're holding most of these quarterbacks to about 5.5, under 6 yards an attempt, which is pretty darn impressive. Like, that is borderline edging on very good to great pass defense from an efficiency standpoint.
I mean, special teams is, like we talked about, special teams to me is the one that was maybe more of a concern for me. Someone else sent me a message a week ago, and they're like, I never had worries about Bertram. So I'm like, that's fine. I did.
We all did.
Right. Like, it's totally cool. Someone else had called it or knew the kid, whatever it is. I had major concerns about special teams. I said this might cost us a game, and now I feel like it might win us a game. Mm-hmm. So that's the one that jumps out to me. Justin, I like your cornerback pick. If I'm thinking of one other one, I think it's tight ends again, which we've talked about. I was a little worried, especially when Nowakowski, because when you see that Nowakowski beat these guys out as kind of the number one guy, especially Ashcraft, and then he gets hurt, it makes you wonder, like, how these guys are so far behind that they can't beat out a walk-on, right? Is kind of the conclusion you get in your head. But they've been really solid again. So I think the two that we're better at, in my opinion, is special teams and tight end than what I expected.
Yeah, I'm going to say special teams, and that's pretty much the only thing that's really better than I expected, because I think everything else has been pretty much like nothing's really been super outshining what I originally sort of thought. And areas of improvement, though, for me, listen, it's run defense. That's just it. That to me is it an inside linebacker play specifically within that. I mean, the Paez and these guys on the front line, they've got to get more penetration and suck up more of those O linemen to be able to allow the linebackers to do what they need to do. Linebackers' biggest area of improvement from me. What's your guys' biggest area of improvement?
Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a tough one because there's so many places this team could get better, but you have to kind of realistically look at it and what is realistic for this team to actually get better at in season without new players, right? Because I would love them to get better at rushing the passer. That's not going to happen this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, that happens next year with Lafayette. I don't think tackling gets fixed in the middle of the year, but I do think if I'm looking at one area that I'm like, yeah, this could get better this year. The alignment stuff defensively, the issues with mesh routes, with rub routes, the miscommunication, listen, Hunter Wohler has done that too. Hunter Wohler blew a wheel route. I think it was against Georgia Southern where he charged up too quickly. That stuff needs to get cleaned up because, listen, Ohio State is going to, Ohio State's not the Ohio State of years past, but with those receivers, if you mess up,
if they're running open, he's going to find them if they're just running by themselves.
On you in Madison if you can't get aligned correctly. So that's the biggest one to me. Like, fix that, and then at least if you're running with people, you make quarterbacks make contested throws.
Yeah, mine is actually because I figured you guys were going to kind of be in that area. For me, it's already starting to be somewhat addressed. It was safety play. I have never been so underwhelmed with what I saw from the safeties early in the season outside of Wohler, where it was just like guys were we were giving up points from that position. And it was one of those things where it's like, you guys just do not seem to know what you're supposed to be doing on this. They were getting burned. They were getting caught looking in the backfield on plays when they were responsible for man coverage. And it's like, you guys need to be more locked in than this. You're way too seasoned and experienced to be having these type of mistakes. And Zachman has kind of balanced that out a little bit. It's been better. I still think that there's plays to be made at that position that we haven't seen. Wooler's been really good, but he's almost like a hybrid to me. So when you look at the other safeties that are on the field, it's like, I need to see more out of you guys. Like maybe let's make it so Hunter can be more in the box and be more aggressive to help in that run game. Mm-hmm. If you guys on the back end can be better at making your plays and taking care of things.
I was just going to say, what's interesting with that is we've talked so much about Latu and how disappointing his season's been. We thought Blaylock would be better too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he's been invisible.
Physical tools. He might have the most physical tools of anyone at the safety position.
Mm-hmm.
But thank goodness for Zachman stepping in and doing what he needed to do. But all right, guys, we've talked through a third of this. We've been through a third of the season. We've talked about our grades. We've talked about what's gone right, what's gone wrong. And now we've got to finish with this.
The Bucky Report predictions.
Right away here real quick. Let's do the Rutgers game score and then give your season prediction.
Okay.
And
Go
then
ahead, Justin.
And then if you have something that you want to throw into as something that you think is going to happen over the remainder of the season that's unexpected. Ryan, I'll let you lead this off. You're the guest. Being a gracious host.
Rutgers is kind of a little bit of a scarier game than I thought it would be. I'm going to say Wisconsin 31, Rutgers 21. 10-point win. I think the spread right now is, did I see like 12?
12 and a half.
Yeah. I'm going to take Rutgers to cover that. I'm going to have to dive into this game more. I think we actually might be doing another tripod show this week where we dive into it more. But I think I have 31-21 Wisconsin winning, but a game that never feels super, super comfortable.
And your season prediction, Ryan?
I'm still at 10-2. Yeah. Listen, this is everything's tracking according to Ryan. The Ryan string has not missed a beat yet. So I still have us losing to Iowa State. But I the rest of the West is so bad that I think we sweep them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so the Rutgers game, I'm going to go. I think we've been scoring pretty consistently as far as points go, 33, 34. So I'm going 35-17. I think it's actually a pretty comfortable win. And yes, I do believe that Rutgers is better, but I think as I said, we've been improving every game. I expect coming out of the bye week, there's been a lot that we talked about the improvements that are going to be made. I think some of those improvements they take effect. It's a home game. Yeah, I like what I'm seeing, and I think that this is going to be a good win for us. As far as season predictions, like Ryan said, I think I'm still sticking with 10-2. I think we're going to win the Big Ten West. The Big Ten West just got a lot easier to win, by the way, because my gosh, there's just not a lot of good teams there. So I'm calling it. Look, it's a total disappointment if we don't win the West. Total disappointment. So that's where I'm going 10-2, 35-17 in the Rutgers game.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stay with you guys. I'm going to say 34-17 because 17 points seems to be what we give up in games that we don't lose. So I'm going to say that. I am sticking with 10-2 also. I think that Ohio State game is our loss. I'd love to see us pull that one out, especially given that we're going to be at that game. And I'm going to throw out something a dark horse prediction here real quick. My prediction is we are going to have at least 2 300-yard passing games over the remainder of the season.
I mean, we're going to need to if we're going to hit your over that you wanted for yards.
We're no kidding. Yeah. Unless he starts going nuts and we start averaging like 350 yards a game, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, we're not hitting that over. I'm just don't. Let me throw my dark horse in there. I think we talked about this before. I expect one of the young cornerbacks to make a second half push for playing time.
Okay.
Whether that's Arnold, whether that's DeClona. It wouldn't stun me if at some point in the year in certain packages you see Snowden, especially since you could play the 4 games, maybe in the red zone. I'm just saying it wouldn't stun me if they used him in a certain package to get his feet wet either.
I'm still calling for it. I've been calling for it. I want to see Jamel Howard play. I want to see him anchoring the middle of that defensive line. I think he brings a lot of physical tools that we simply do not have right now. It clearly is a point of weakness. I really hope that happens, and I think it just needs to. But listen, thank you all. Go ahead, Justin.
One more before we close the door. Tretch, does he play or no?
I don't think he does. I really don't. I think he's going to get redshirted.
I'm throwing that out there because we love him. And I want to see Tretch out on the field.
I mean, believe me, we all love him. He's fantastic. I think we're going to see him next year. But
we've heard some good things sneaking out of the practices. So look forward to him next year, everybody.
Yeah, he's going to be amazing. But listen, so it's always fun doing this with 3 guys, and especially we obviously had
the great Ryan Harings.
The great Ryan Harings joined us today. So thank you so much for being with us. And again, I've said this before. Justin and I have both said this independently, together on the show, on this show, on his show. We wouldn't be able to do this without Ryan and everything that he built, the community that he built with Locked On Badgers. If you don't subscribe to them, you just need to. And I'm assuming that everyone does, because it's the best show out there. It's a daily show. Every single day, this guy's putting out fantastic content. So thank you, Ryan, for everything you've done for the Badger community and for us. Any last words from our humble, amazing guest today?
No, just thank you. You guys are awesome. You guys both have something coming in the mail. Wink, wink. So look forward to that. No, you guys are incredible. And this show is a testament to, you guys give me too much credit. It's a testament to what you guys do. And the fact that it was, I think I told you my first couple shows had like 30 views, and you guys have like it's a testament to you guys, really.
Yeah,
I would say this.
We're riding your coattails, Ryan.
I would say this because you talked about community. I think everybody should go join the Discord. We're all three in there.
Yep.
And it's really, I think, one of the best Badger communities out there. There's no there's really no, and Justin, you mentioned there's no toxicity. So come join, talk Badgers and everything else.
Yep. And we'll drop the Discord link in the show notes for you guys to come check it out if you need it.
Definitely. All right, very good. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And we will be back in the middle of the week with our quick hit episode on 3 big things going into the Rutgers game.
Week.
Is it a trap game? I guess we'll find out soon enough. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, on Wisconsin!